Variables and outputs in Terraform are very important to define values and also to follow Terraform best practice. If you are a DevOps engineer working on Terraform, learn how you can define variable in different ways and how you can get values through outputs in this video. Let's start. Welcome to CloudChamp. In this video, we are going to learn about variables and outputs in Terraform, which are very important for you to know and to work with Terraform best practices rather than defining your values hard-coded inside the code. This is the fourth video in the Terraform playlist. If you haven't checked out the playlist, the link is in description. Do check out to learn Terraform from scratch. Let's start with learning variables in Terraform. So in Terraform, there are three types of different variables: input variables, output variables, and local variables. For this video, we are covering input and output variables, but let's also look what are local variables. So local variables are declared using locals block. As you can see here, this is a local variable defined using locals block having some values, but these values are only accessible within the module or the configuration where they are declared. You cannot use these variables outside the modules or the configuration, but you can use them inside the own file or their own configuration. As you can see here, we are creating a resource and using the values from this local block. Similar to this is variable block. So input variables in Terraform lets users specify specific values when creating their infrastructure. So this is how you can define your variable. The reading slides are very boring, so let's do some hands-on. I'm going to open my terminal and let's open the same folder that we created yesterday. So I'm going to say Terraform course. In this, let's open this in VS Code now. So here's my VS Code. Yesterday we have defined provider in AWS. If you don't know what a provider is, do check out the previous video. And we also created an instance which I have deleted right now. So let's try to use variables for this particular instance here. So in this instance, we are creating an AMI. So here we are creating an instance with Ubuntu AMI, the instance type is T2 micro, and the name of the instance is Hello World. All these values are hard-coded, which Terraform does not want you to do. So let's create variable for everything here. So first I'm going to create a variable for AMI, and to create a variable, you need to define variable block, which is this. So variable, and it automatically creates a block because I have extension installed. You can install this HashiCorp extension to have extra features when using or when working with Terraform. Okay, so if you check the slide here as well, input variables are declared through variable block, but there are many other ways you can use to define a variable, and I'm going to show you all the different ways in this video, so make sure you watch it. So here, to define the value in the variable, I need to define the name first. So the name can be anything. It can be AMI, it can be operating system, it can be anything you like. So I would say OS here. So let's say OS, and inside this variable, there are different attributes like type, default. There are different attributes like type, default, description, validation, sensitive, and all these attributes are optional, and this will make sense in a minute. So let's try to add some attribute here. First, I'm going to say type, which will define what should be the data type for this particular variable. So the data type is string because here you can see this is a string. And then the next attribute is default. Default is where you put the actual value of the variable. So the variable value is this one, the long string, which having AMI and the number. So I'm going to put this inside here and remove this from here. So I don't want to hard code the AMI value anymore. So I'm going to put that in the variable. Along with this, you can add description for this particular variable. So I can say this is my AMI ID. Okay. Apart from this, you can also add validation or sensitive. Sensitive is to mask your value so that no one else can see in the UI. So if I do sensitive equals to true, you can see the description here. It says you can use sensitive when the variable contains sensitive material and should be hidden in the UI. But even though it is sensitive, you will be able to see it in the state file or state file. So this is an exam question. When you make things sensitive, where do you see it? You can see it in the state file. I'm going to tell you what is state file in the upcoming videos, so don't need to worry about it right now. So for this example, I'm not going to add sensitive. And last thing is validation. This is to define that the value should be same or exactly what we want. To understand this, let's go to the Terraform official documentation, which is here, and let's search for validation. So you can see validation is here, a block to define validation rules, usually in addition to type constants. So here in the validation, there's a condition saying that the length of the variable should be greater than 4, and it should have this at the start of it. So this means it is an AMI ID. So you can add this if you want. I'm not going to add it now. So this is my variable ready. If I want to use this variable inside this thing so that you can get the value of the AMI from here, I need to say var, which is var dot name of the variable, which is OS here. So var dot OS. And if I save it, try to run Terraform plan, it should get the value of the AMI from this variable. If it shows some error, which means we are not doing things right. So let's do plan. And okay, we haven't installed the provider yet, so need to run Terraform init command first. So let's run Terraform init, and it will start installing AWS provider. Once it is installed, you will see some files here as well. So let's install it. You can see installing HashiCorp AWS version 5.8.0, which we have explained which I've explained in the previous video. So if you haven't checked out, make sure you do. Let's wait for this to install, and then we can start with our other commands, which are Terraform plan, Terraform apply commands, to see if our variable is working properly or not. So you can see now here, there's a file created with the Terraform provider for AWS, and here you can see Terraform has successfully initialized. You may now begin working with the Terraform and try running Terraform plan to see what changes are going to be done. So let's run Terraform plan, and according to the plan, it should say one instance going to be created, and the value of the AMI should be picked up from here. So it says one thing to be added, and the value of the AMI, let's try to see it in the plan. So in the plan here, we can see the AMI value is this one, correct, which is absolutely correct. Let's try to add variables for other blocks, other things as well. I'm going to add a variable for this and for this. So let's create a variable block similar to what we did. I'm going to say size for instance type, and inside this size, I'm going to say default equals to t2.micro. Save it, and you can use it by saying var.size. Similar to this, I can also do this for year. So var.name, and let's create a variable for that. So variable block saying name, and the value is going to be default equals to Terraform EC2. Make sure it is in double quotes because it is a string. So now we have defined 3 variables, and we are not hard coding any values here, which is what Terraform actually wants us. So this is the best practice. And now if I run Terraform plan, it will show me everything and all the values fetched from these variables here. So if I run plan, now you can see the name of the instance is going to be shown here. So the name of the instance is Terraform EC2, which is picked up from the variable. Then you have T2 micro picked up from variable and the AMI ID. Let's try to create it and see what happens in our console. So I'm going to say Terraform apply -auto -approve. So you can see I don't have any instances present in my machine, and once it is created, I'll see an instance here. So right now it is in creating state. Within 30 seconds or so, I should have an instance present in my console here. So still creating. Let's remove this tag for running, and you'll see an instance right now is in pending state. And after some time, which name is also Terraform EC2, same as what we have described in our variable here. So you can see now it is a running state, and after some time it will be created according to Terraform. So now the Terraform has created our instance, and the values are picked up from the variables, which is absolutely what we want. Let's try to see other ways you can define your variable. Before we do that, we can also define our variables with different data types like numbers, booleans. So here you have seen that this variable has a type of string. You can choose to add this type, or you can choose to remove it as well. All these values are optional, but you can have variable of data type with numbers, booleans, strings, maps, objects, and so much more. Here are some examples with string, with number, with boolean, list. But you can also have more than that, of list of strings, list of numbers, set of strings, map of strings, objects, tuples, and much more. Now, let's see what are the different ways you can define variables. So if we have already seen how to define variables using variable block, let's try to see how you can define variables with a CLI prompt during Terraform initialization or execution. To show this, let's try to create another bucket. But before I do this, let me put this all variables in a separate file, and rather than defining it in main.tf, so I'm going to say variable.tf and put this here. Okay, this variable should be outside Terraform block. Make sure you do that. So I'm going to say move, and this is not inside it. Okay. Alright, so now we have created a variable.tf, which is storing all the variable. I'm going to create a new resource. Let's create S3 bucket, and we need to use this option, which is to give the value of the variable through CLI prompt during Terraform initialization or execution. So to create a bucket, you need to define a resource, and If you want to get idea on how to create it, you can use this documentation on Terraform, which is AWS S3 bucket. So the resource name is AWS underscore S3 underscore bucket, as you can see here. So I'm going to use that. And inside this bucket, there are some attributes. You can get to know what are the attributes that you require to create a bucket by here. So argument reference are here. This is optional. This is optional. You can get to know what it is. But I can create a bucket with just one attribute, and I need to put the name of the bucket here. Remember, this is not the name of the bucket. This is only the name that Terraform uses. So I'm going to say bucket. And in this, I need to have a unique name that I'm going to use, that I'm going to provide using a Terraform variable. So let's create a variable for bucket name. I'm going to say variable and bucket name. As I said in the previous thing, all these attributes are optional, so you can choose to keep the variable block empty completely. When I keep this block empty, let me show you what happens. So now I have created this variable. I'm going to save the file and reference that variable here. So I'm going to say var.bucketName. Now the block has been created, but no values have been defined. So when I run Terraform plan, CLI is going to ask me to put the value. So Terraform plan, and then you can see the CLI is asking me what should be the name of the bucket you want to create. So let's try to add some name here. My cloud champ Terraform bucket 2023. Hopefully this is unique, so it should show us a plan. And now once the plan is done, it should take the value of the variable defined here from here. So now you can see a bucket has been created. Bucket is going to be created, and the name of the bucket should be my cloud champ Terraform bucket 2023. This is the second way of defining your block variables through CLI prompt during initialization or execution. So this is how you can define your variable when you don't define it in the variable block. So the Terraform will ask you in the CLI prompt, and then you can define it this. This is how you can do it. Another way to define it is using -var option. So let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to say Terraform plan, and now I haven't created this bucket. I have just ran a plan. So if I run Terraform plan again, it's going to ask me the same thing again. So if I don't want it to be asking me, I can just add a var flag. So I can say Terraform plan -var equals to, what is the name variable? Variable name is bucket name. So bucket name equals to some value. So my cloud champ bucket 2023. And if everything is okay, it should not give us error, or it should not ask us for the value, because now we are using -var thing. So, and it should show us the plan directly. Now you can see it's not asking us for any prompt, and within few seconds, it is now going to show us the plan as well. This is the third way of you defining Terraform variable using -var thing. So let's go and apply this, and let's see if a bucket has been going to be created or not. So I'm going to say apply -auto -approve. And now a bucket will be created using this name. If I show you, I don't have any buckets right now in my S3 with this name named as Cloud Champ. And you can see one thing going to be added: 0 to change, 0 to destroy. You can see there's no bucket with the Cloud Champ Terraform 2023 name. And now Terraform is going to create it. So Terraform says creation completed in just 6 seconds. Now if I refresh my S3 here, you can see a bucket has been created right now, which is completely empty because I haven't added anything. So this is how you can create buckets in Terraform using variables. We have seen 3 different ways on how you can define a variable: by using a variable block, by adding the value to the CLI prompt, and by also using the variable -var flag. So this is how you can use -var flag. You can read more about it on the documentation itself as well. So the first way is to create a block, second is for CLI prompt, third way is to use the command line flag. Next, you can also use a tfvars file, which is very, very, very common when working with different environments like staging, prod, test, development. So let me show you this with an example as well. I'm going to create another resource, and this resource is now going to be, let's say, IAM user. Okay, let's try to use that. So to create IAM user, you need to create a resource again. So resource, and this resource, I'm going to create an AWS IAM user. So I'll say AWS IAM underscore user. And this is going to be my user, the name that I want the Terraform to use. inside this, I need to pass an attribute saying name of the user, which can be anything. So I can define this in directly, or I can also use a variable block like I did. But I'm going to use Terraform tfvars file, and I'm going to create two files, one for prod, one for staging. So let's try to create a file here. I'm going to say prod.tfvars and staging.tfvars. Okay. In this main.tf, I have a resource created for AWS IAM user, and I want this user to be named as user, prod user, or stage user, something like this. So I'll say define a variable similar to what you did here without defining the value. So I'll say variable username and nothing inside it. Then I'm going to go here and say username equals to prod. Similarly, in staging, I want to say username equals to stage. Okay. And in this main.tf, I'll say the user should be the variable first. So prod user or stage user. So I can use it like this. I can do it like this. So var dot username and hyphen user. So the value should be, if it is a prod, if you're using prod file, it should be like this, prod dash user. If it is a stage file we are using, then it should be stage.user, and the user should be created. All right. So now, if I want to use prod file, I need to say -var -file equals to prod.tfvars. If I want to use staging, I need to say -var -file staging.tfvars. So let's try to check that out. I'm going to use the same thing, and -var -file equals to staging.tfvars. Let's use this to check the plan first. I'm going to first check a plan, and according to the plan, it should show me that the user is going to be created, which should have stage-user. So it gives us an error saying -auto but not defined. Okay, sorry, I need to remove this -auto as well. So now we are creating a Terraform plan with using staging.tfvars file, which has username value as stage. So when the user is created, it should be stage-user in the plan. So once I run this, let's check the plan. What does it say? So the plan is saying input variable name has not been declared. Okay. Oh, sorry, it should be in double quotes. Make sure you have stage. And here it should also be in double quotes. Let's save this and save this and try again. Bye. Okay. So now it will show me a plan. And according to the plan, it says one thing is going to be created and the user name is stage-user. So if I go ahead and apply this plan, if I go ahead and run apply command, it will create a user with name stage-user. If I use something else, let's try to use prod.user here now, prod.tfvars file. So using prod.tfvars, it will create a user with the name as prod.tfvars. And this is a very common practice we use in real life, having different tfvars files for different environments. So here I've shown you this example as well. If you have any questions regarding this, feel free to let me know. I can explain you things in more easier way. So you can see the user has been created. Let's go and check what is the username now. So I'm going to go in my IAM dashboard and check the users created. According to this plan, it says a prod-user should be created, which is what we have here in the main.tf as well. So you can see users, and the username is prod-user that has been created right now. So this is how you can define variables using -var tfvars file. There's also another way where you can use environment variables, which starts with -tf, tf_var_. So to show you that in the CLI, whenever we declare environment variable, we need to use export command. So export tf_var_ and then name of the variable, let's say username equals to prod or equals to stage, something like this. So this is how you can define it. And if you want to know more, you can obviously check the documentation again. So in the documentation, you can see this is how you can define the word environment variable using export command, tfvar, and then the image ID equals to this. Lastly, you can also use the cloud and enterprise, which is out of scope because I don't have Terraform Cloud or enterprise account. But if you learn these things, this is all you need. And this is what we use every day in our Terraform code when working in industries. So make sure you understand how to use variables and why do we use it, how to declare this in different ways as shown in this video. Now let's look at outputs. And what do you mean by outputs? So sometimes there can be an application that you deployed on AWS, which can be on EC2, and you might need to get the IP address or database credentials or database endpoint or anything like that. And for you to get the things in the CLI, so if you want to get the things right here in your CLI, you can use outputs. So let me show you that. Let's say here I'm creating this instance and I want to get the IP address of that instance here in my CLI. To create an output, I need to create an output block. So this is the output block. It will have some name. You can see the example here, output name, value, description, sensitive. So I'm going to say IP address. And inside this, I need to say value. What value do I want? So I want the value of the IP address of this particular instance. So I'm going to copy this here, AWS instance.web, copy it and then paste it here. And I need to say AWS instance.web. So what do I want? I want public IP. I'll set public underscore IP and save it. Once I run this and run Terraform plan command with the bucket name, let's write with any bucket name for now, username, anything, because we haven't defined any variable, so it's asking us in the CLI. So once this is done, it will show you that an output is going to be generated. So you can see this instance is already created. So we get the output directly here. So now if I run Terraform output, I'll be able to see all the outputs that I have defined here. Right now, I only defined the IP address output. So I'll see Terraform output here. So this is the IP address. I misspelled it. So this is the IP address of the instance. Similarly, I can get more things like DNS as well. So let's try to get the DNS of the IP of the instance. So I can make it DNS. And instead of public IP, I need to get the public DNS. So I can save it. So now you can see if I run Terraform output, I'll be able to see DNS as well as the IP address. And this is how you can define your variables and outputs in Terraform. This is very important for you to know because you will also be using this in the module section, which is very important. So you can see here, you have to use outputs and variables to pass values between the different modules. So this is very important for you to know. I hope this video was informative. If you have any questions, any doubt, feel free to let me know in the comment section. Thank you and have a good day.